Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Archana Kaushik from Department of Social Work, University of Delhi. Today we are going to learn about steps in community engagement from the paper Human Resource Development through Community Engagement. After completing this module, the students will be able to understand different levels of community engagement, identify the process and steps in community engagement, examine the role and tasks of community worker at each step of community engagement. Community engagement aims to bring positive and sustainable change in the lives of the people. Community engagement is the process of working collaboratively with and through groups of people affiliated by geographical proximity, special interest or similar situations to address issues affecting the well-being of those people. Principles of community organization like social justice, human rights, people's participation, self-determination and such others are there. Its scope is very vast. This slide shows the 5 levels of community engagement, which are to inform, to consult, to involve, to collaborate and to empower. This is the first level, which is to inform, where the agency or the community worker is informing the community people. It is the second level, to consult, where the community people, they are providing information and the community worker or agency is consulting. This is the third level, to involve, and here you see the mutual participation between the community worker or agency and the community people. Fourth level is to collaborate, where you see a better participation among the community people as well as the agency or community worker. Fifth level, to empower. Here you see the community people as well as the agency or community worker, they are collaborating and empowering each other. Steps in community engagement. Community engagement is a process with many well-defined steps. Level of community engagement process and steps depend upon the issue taken up. A series of well-defined steps are followed in engaging with the community for powerful action. The steps in community engagement, although distinct, may overlap in real practice. The sequence of these steps or stages may also vary depending on the specific context in which they are applied. Identifying the sites of engagement. Crucial factors in site selection are needs and problems of the community, organizational goals, vision and mission, availability of resources, human, material and or financial, or donor agencies. Site selection is commonly fund driven. However, at times community interventions are taken up to exclusively based on the felt needs of the community. Identifying needs and issues requiring intervention. The second step has two complementary parts. They are simultaneous. First is rapport formation and the second is developing community profile. Rapport formation. Communities' apparent needs and problems may not be the real ones. For locating real issues and problems, a strong rapport with the community people is needed. Without a rapport, people may not open up and freely share their problems. For a community worker, identifying intricate and deep-rooted skewed power equations is difficult without good rapport formation. Developing community profile. It is a scientific and reliable way of identifying the felt and unfelt needs and problems of the community people. It facilitates rapport formation. It may be gathered through door-to-door survey or using participatory rural appraisal and related techniques. Information for community profile is based on one context and characteristics of the community are proposed interventions. Community profile includes data on geographical location, topography, climate, etc., administrative details and contact details of important administrative heads and functionaries, local history, genesis, important events, etc. Characteristics of the population like age, gender, caste, religion, literacy, occupation, people below poverty line, etc. Housing patterns, ownership, size of dwellings, etc. Civic amenities, health, education, drinking water, electricity, transportation and communication, etc. Detailed information on government schemes and programs and profile of beneficiaries, availability of financial institutions like banks, cooperatives, markets, etc. Non-governmental organizations like voluntary organizations, women's groups, youth clubs, community recreation centers and other programs of civic engagement, other facilities like library, panchayat ghar, barat ghar, community hall, police station, etc. Need assessment. This is the next stage. After developing community profile, following issues need to be resolved. Are the community people in difficult situation that requires social work intervention? If the answer is no, then the social worker needs to go to another community. If the answer is yes, then it is significant to gauge whether the community people have felt and expressed their needs and problems. In case the community has not recognized, felt and expressed the needs, efforts should be first directed towards making the community realize them. Felt needs of the community people and needs perceived by the community organizer may differ. In situations when community organizer initiates action based on his or her own appraisal of community needs, such intervention is neither relevant to the community nor sustainable. Working on the felt needs of the community is of critical importance. In situations where community has not realized the needs of preliminary step, that is demand creation or making the people feel the need, action based on felt needs of the community are likely to be productive and sustainable from the perspective of the community. There may be a gap between expressed needs and actual needs of the community. This confusion often leads to initiation of programs which may not elicit people's long-term participation. At times, people living with their unmet needs and problems for long tend to accept them or adjust to them, so that the degree of their feelings about them has not surfaced. In such cases, the community organizer is expected to facilitate the process of bringing these feelings to a conscious level. There may be diverse conceptualization of needs and problems. Need prioritization. In common practice, community organizer shares the findings of the baseline study or compiled community profile with the community people. A list of needs identified by the community people is presented before them. Taking action on all needs simultaneously is not possible. Needs are analyzed and their magnitude, severity, symptoms and causes, and after discussions and deliberations in various community meetings, prioritization of needs is done. Selecting a problem. From the priority list, most urgent problem which needs to be taken up immediately is selected. All the problems cannot be approached simultaneously, therefore there is a need for selecting any one problem to initiate further action. Based on the order of priority, the first in the list is taken up for working out solutions. Problem analysis and redefinition. Next step is examination and analyze the selected needs and problems so that community people fully understand its dimensions and implications. For better comprehension, various tools of analysis are used, such as problem tree analysis, stakeholder analysis, SWOT analysis, etc. It is important for effective planning and execution of the desired action plan. Thus, the problem has to be thoroughly analyzed, redefined and clearly stated at this stage. Formulation of achievable objectives. the redefined problem is then converted into achievable and measurable objectives for further action. Sometimes there is an overall objective with many sub-parts or sub-objectives so as to develop appropriate action plan to meet the needs of the community. Igniting motivation and confidence. Many times community people do not have enough confidence to achieve the goals. They feel themselves incompetent as they do not have the past experience to know the power of shared work, cooperation and people's participation. Years of apathetic and indifferent attitude of service providers and sense of self-doubt and inferiority may lead to setting of complacency among the people. Community organizer has to consistently support, encourage and motivate people for achieving the set objectives. Next is locating alternatives. Following this, community people are facilitated to explore different options for action based on the objectives. In groups, inhabitants of the community brainstorm and deliberate upon various alternatives. Next is selection of an appropriate alternative. Among the proposed alternatives, the best alternative or set of alternatives is selected for dealing with the problem at hand. Generally, a community starts with milder options and gradually moves to other more strong measures, and when nothing works out, radical social action strategies are employed. Work out a plan of action. In this step, based on chosen alternatives, plan of action is formulated, responsibilities are assigned to people. Time frame, resources required and personnel involved are decided at this stage. It is crucial that people take charge to solve their own problems, where community organizer is only a facilitator. Leadership skills are to be harnessed among the community people. The people may develop dependency syndrome. Unless projects are initiated, planned, executed and evaluated by the community people, community empowerment cannot be achieved. Mobilization of resources. To implement the proposed plan of action, requisite resources are to be assessed, identified and mobilized. These resources may be in the form of money, time, manpower and material. A balance of internal and external resources are to be used. External resources may be funding, technical assistance, etc. Attempting to deal with community problem for which local resources are inadequate may cause frustration and a sense of failure among inhabitants in the long run. At the same time, too much reliance on external resources often creates dependency syndrome which hampers empowerment. Implementation. In this step, plan of action is implemented. Active participation of people is ensured as they discharge their accepted responsibilities. Community organizer prepares, guides and encourages people to hold responsibilities and become partners in the process of problem solving. In order to facilitate sustainability of the process, the agency or worker should gradually withdraw and simultaneously community people take over the charge. This process makes people realize their own capacities and capabilities and power to participation in resolving their own problems. This practical experience of the strength and dynamism of cooperation, coordination and shared work of the people fill them with confidence and courage to have control over their own life events. Even little accomplishments, despite difficulties encountered, make inhabitants realize the vital power of people's participation, which they would be using in resolving their other present and future problems. Evaluation. The implemented plan is evaluated to assess the success and determine the limitations and constraints faced during implementation. Maintenance of accurate records of all work done and implemented in a framework for analysis are necessary prerequisite for objective evaluation. The positive and desirable results are appreciated and the shortcomings analyzed and discussed as lessons learned. The learning derived through the evaluation process enables the community to identify the strong points and weak points of its action plan. Modifications. On the basis of evaluation, necessary modifications are planned and incorporated. These modifications facilitate a more effective response to the needs and problems taken up for collective action. Development of cooperative and collaborative attitudes. In fact, it is not a step but a byproduct of shared planning and action to achieve the goals for which community people engage and participate. As the process of community organization evolves and progresses, people in the community come together to understand, accept and work with one another. In this dynamic process, they shed away their prejudices and biases against each other and work collaboratively in dealing with a common need or problem. People learn to appreciate diversity and celebrate collective spirit. This is the crux of the process of community organization. The process of community organization may not necessarily lead to the eradication of all differences between community people, but it often leads to an increased ability of the people to understand this diversity and accept the same. This experience prepares and empowers the community to deal more readily and skillfully with similar problems which may arise in the future. By being able to recognize them earlier and by being better equipped to cope with them as they arise. Thus, community organization is not simply concerned with development of infrastructure, say a school, but most vital is the development of an enhanced capacity of the community to undertake collaborative projects. It is the process oriented and not task oriented effort. It aims to develop the community's capacity to function as an integrated unit with respect to its needs, problems and common goals. And the community gradually realizes and cherishes the goal of shared action for creating an egalitarian and empowered community. Let us now summarize what we have studied in this module. Community organization as a method of social work aims to develop collaborative attitudes and institutionalize participation among community members so that they become self-sufficient in resolving their problems on their own. In this module, 5 levels of community engagement are delineated, which are to inform, to consult, to involve, to collaborate and to empower. Steps of community organization are mentioned that begin with identifying site of engagement to rapport building and baseline data collection in the form of community profile, prioritizing and zeroing down on needs, arranging resources, taking action, evaluating, and in this process developing a spirit of shared living among the community people, facilitating them to collectively working to solve their own problems. This becomes the base of community empowerment. The process of community organization begins with first level of community engagement, that is to inform, and ends with the final and 5th level, that is to empower. Thank you.